Hey GQ family, how are you? Good morning. Welcome to a DNA Talk. Today I have Rosanna Moreno with McMason Moreno Global Consultants. They specialize in medical tourism, and we are going to be talking about DNA testing. And this is a new show that we're going to be putting together. So I want you guys to keep in mind, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask later on. Rosanna, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. I'm Rosanna Gomez Moreno. I'm an attorney and also a healthcare project development consultant. Our primary focus is Latin America, and it's a pleasure to be here with Marcelo. An avid I guess genealogical researcher. I've been working on my family tree for about 3 years, and it's been an adventure for me. So I'm really, truly, I'm just having fun with it. And so Marcelo invited me to come and join you guys, and I look forward to discussing the topic today.
All right. So DNA. It's such a topic that everywhere you go, everywhere you look at nowadays, you see something related to DNA. It's something
Right.
that has come up that I think everybody's just concerned or curious or whatever. But the point is, you're having fun with this. I'm having fun with this. And I have to say that I have found over 12 different cousins that I did not know existed. They are all over the world. And some of them I actually came to find out they're related directly to my dad.
Right.
Someone who I never met. So it's interesting how this actually works.
Right.
And I wanted to ask you, why did you decide to do this to begin with?
Well, I'll start with a caveat that, of course, I'm an amateur at this. So,
Oh, me too. Oh, totally.
I did this as a promise to my dad.
Okay.
3 days prior to his death, in April of 2001, Daddy said, Rosanna, I want you to work on the family tree. And he says, this is something that I've started working on. He had sketched out the family, and he had stopped somewhere midway, like in the 1700s.
Okay.
And he said, Mija, I want you to work on this, and promise me that you'll work on it. And I said, okay, Dad, I promise. Well, life got in the way. And my mother came and lived with us here in Houston, and I promised him I would take care of her. And finally, I was busy with my career, raising my daughter, of course, my husband's responsibilities as well. And so May 2016, my mother passed away. After caring for her. And lo and behold, I was going through all of the paperwork, and I found my father's family tree. And
Wow.
One day, I'm sitting down with my husband, and we see this Ancestry.com commercial on TV, and we just looked at each other. It was around Christmas time, at the end of that year, and we looked at each other, and we said, you want to do it? And we did it. And lo and behold, guess what? We're related. We found out we were related. We were 7 generations, at least I'm 7 generations separated, but his grandmother is my cousin. So, of course, he's my cousin. He's my 9th cousin.
So that's the interest. That's a very interesting thing. So I wanted to ask you a little bit. So tell us a little bit about your mix. What did you find out?
It's a fascinating mix because I've had 3 different tests done. I've done Ancestry.com, I've done 23andMe, and I've done Family Tree DNA. Family Tree DNA is based here in Houston, and it's very, very specific, very, very research-oriented, and it really drills down on your DNA. 23andMe and Ancestry.com are very similar, but my breakdown is, 42% Spanish, I'm 16% Portuguese. Also, within the mix, 6% British, Scottish, 6% Italian.
What?
I know.
Okay.
I'm French, Arab, Jewish.
Okay. I'm Jewish.
Yeah, I'm Ashkenazi Jew. Of course, of Sephardic. The Sephardic Jews are from Spain, but we are of Ashkenazi. Descent. And then I have 4% that's unidentified.
And see, this is the interesting thing, guys, because sometimes you might wonder, why should I do this? And to me personally, I married a Mexican who's French, Spanish, Mexican, Aztec, whatever.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm Salvadorian. So the question was, what are my kids? So everything started with the curiosity of what can I tell my kids when they ask me, Dad, who are we? What are we? And now I have my wife taking the test because I want to know more details about her background. But for you, it was something that your father asked you.
Right. He specifically asked me to do it.
Now, one thing though, culture-wise, is very important to consider though the fact that see, I'm Salvadorian. This is not something that I find that Salvadorians tell us, hey, you should do this, you
Right.
should know about this. In the contrary, we don't know much about our past.
Well, it's interesting. Being Mexican American of many many generations, going back to the founding of Texas and New Mexico, which many Americans don't know that because our history, we're not told that. But I found that so many resources with regard to Mexican Americans, because down in South Texas, you have so many Mexican Americans working on their family tree, because it goes back to the founding of Mexico through New Spain. Of course, that goes all the way down,
course.
to Argentina. And so there are so many resources that we have as Mexicans or Americans of Mexican descent. You have Moises Garza down in the valley. You have the We Are Cousins and the Somos Primos, websites. You have the Mexican genealogy website. You have, for instance, like my grandfather. I didn't even know that my grandfather had siblings. We knew nothing about my grandfather's family. So I ended up being the one in the family to break through brick walls on my grandfather.
That's incredible. Some people are trying to do this testing though because they want to know about their health issues in the future.
Sure. That's very, very a great question. My nephew's wife, for instance, she really did her DNA test because of her health issues. So she's been drilling down on her DNA to find out what she inherited from her family, as far as what specific illnesses she inherited. So she's drilling down on her DNA.
So can you elaborate a bit on
what illnesses?
Well, I mean, how do they know this?
Well,
I mean, I don't know much about this to be honest with you. So, but I'm curious to know, how can people know these things? How
well,
can
it's
DNA
amazing.
tell you?
Well, okay, let me tell you. I ended up receiving an email from a researcher from Argentina, of all things.
Okay.
And he had ended up finding that I was related to someone in L.A. He's 9 generations removed, and someone from New Mexico who was 5 generations removed. He's a closer cousin to me. So we're cousins. I have no idea who they are, and he actually is conducting a study on my mother's DNA, the matrilineal DNA, the mtDNA. Okay, so that DNA is inherited through your mother, and it continues down the line through women. So that is, if you inherited your mother's DNA, it stops with you. Your daughter will not inherit your DNA. Your daughter will inherit your wife's DNA.
Oh.
So I had a daughter, so my daughter now inherits my mother's DNA, my DNA. Okay, so it's matrilineal, it just goes through the women.
Okay.
So he has found that my mother's matrilineal...
So my daughter will have my wife's.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah, and your son will have your wife's matrilineal DNA.
So
but it
my
stops with him.
mother's
Dies
stopped.
with you. It stops with you.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's so
isn't that
interesting.
fascinating?
So we lose track of who we are once you have boys only.
It's true.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, keep trying. Find the baby girl. Seriously,
and guys, I'm an amateur. Okay, I have to continue reminding
Wow.
you guys.
No, but it's interesting because you're always thinking, back in the day, royalty, they were always looking for the boy. To
That's
continue
true.
the bloodline.
Continue the bloodline, but it's the
when
female.
it comes to genealogy,
it's the female.
how interesting.
Well, and the interesting thing is that my husband and my father had the same Y chromosome, same Y DNA.
Okay.
And so that's how we're related. We come from the
Wow.
same
Right.
original.
So through the maternal line, you guys were able to figure that out.
Yeah.
Wow. And I had some people,
Yeah.
Nelson
Yeah.
Fuentes is
Sure.
asking for us to do it in Spanish. Nelson, este show es en inglés, pero en un futuro vamos a ponerlo en español y es con relación a lo que es el ADN y el estudio del ADN. So, and we thank everyone who's watching, Jay Chamberlain, Palmer Cass, Amy Mendez, and Nelson Fuentes. Thank you for joining. And this will be also uploaded to podcast on Spotify after 12 o'clock today. So you guys can keep
Wonderful.
listening to it. Anyways, so where should people start?
Well, I would venture to say that it's so much easier if you do your DNA through Ancestry.com. You can start your tree with Ancestry.com.
Okay.
It's very, very easy. There are all kinds of other resources like Roots Web. just other resources where you can go ahead and start your tree if you'd like, independent of Ancestry.com. But I really do believe Ancestry.com is a great resource.
Okay. Now, how expensive can this get? Because obviously,
Yeah.
I've been considering to get the premium account on Ancestry.
It's $199, something like that.
A year?
Yeah, a year.
Okay. So it's interesting, but if you really are trying to get to know your past,
Right.
I think this is some money that can be very well invested.
I think it is.
I mean, me, for instance, this opened up a way for me to find out who my dad was.
Yeah.
And confirm certain things that my mother had always told me
Right.
about him. And now I found that I have a bunch of cousins who
Yeah.
I had no clue existed. And they're all from my paternal
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
side. I haven't found any from my maternal yet, but they're all from my paternal, which I find super interesting because I have no relationship with my father's
Right.
side of the family because I never met this
Right.
person. So I tell you, you'll find things that you might not be ready to.
That is so true. I found as I was working on the tree, and certainly on my DNA, where I found where uncles married nieces, first cousins married each other. But you have to understand, you have to consider the times, where these were rural communities, small communities. You have to consider the cultures. You have to consider the religion. My family was, continued with. Although they were Catholic, they still maintained the Jewish traditions. If you consider the flour tortilla, the carnitas, and all that, that was converso Jew.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Oh, yeah.
very, very Jewish.
I mean, even el taco al pastor comes from the Turkish.
Turkish Ladino
Yeah.
community. And so my family was still maintained the Jewish traditions. And so, finding those things out, I had a cousin who didn't even know that her parents were first cousins, but everybody else knew. She didn't find out until my tia was on her deathbed. But her daughters don't know that her parents were first cousins. So these are all skeletons that you're going to find in the closet that you have to be prepared for.
So I have a skeleton that a friend of mine found out. So he is always been very white. We'll just say that. We'll just say he's always been very white.
Sure.
We all make fun of him because he's always very I'm white,
Yeah.
and y'all are Hispanics,
Right.
y'all are whatever. And he took this test and found out that he was 41% African American.
Oh, wow. That can happen.
He was shocked. And he was like, how come? This must be wrong. I don't look black. I don't have anything
Right.
that resembles African descendants. But he was.
Right.
He took it again.
Right.
Because he thought it was,
It was a mistake.
It was a mistake or so. And it came back the same.
Right. Well, and a lot of individuals have found that. I had, of course, my Native American confirmed, and I'm 22% Native
See,
American.
I always thought I was either Turkish or Italian.
Yeah.
Comes out Spanish.
Yeah.
35%.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so you might not be ready to find out certain things because one of the things I can tell you is if you have the time to talk to certain people, what do you call it? From your past, let's say your grandma, your great grandma,
sure.
and aunt,
Take
whatever.
advantage of it.
Look, sit down with them,
Right.
make a cup of coffee for them, and ask them questions. I did that with my grandma, and honestly, I have about 5-6 pages full of names, and more or less the years these people were born in, where they were born, because eventually I want to research more. So on Ancestry.com, it allows you to make your own family tree. I have gone and plugged in as much as I remember off the top of my head, but eventually I want to plug in the rest of the things or the names that I have from my grandma, and I can only imagine what I'll find out. I mean, that's the only thing I'm going to say. I can only imagine what I'll find out, and I think at the end of the day, it is something that if it interests you, go ahead and do it.
Yeah. The beauty about it is that you may end up developing some wonderful relationships. I ended up, through my maternal grandfather's side of the family, who we thought was an only child. It turns out he wasn't,
Okay.
and through his, also through his father's side of the family, my great-grandfather's side of the family, he had a sister. And I have been able to find family members. But also
Wow.
on my great-grandmother's side of the family, I found who were related not only to my great-grandmother, they were related to my great-grandfather because the Alcalás and the Gutierrezes all intermarried. So I have cousins in Guadalajara that I have become very close to. Last December, we celebrated Christmas in Guadalajara.
Wow.
And now we are getting ready to celebrate our third Alcalá family reunion in San Antonio. in
Okay.
March of next year.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is beautiful things can come out of this. Is
Definitely.
finding family that you didn't
But
even know
see,
existed.
I think there's also something interesting here because, for instance, I have Juana Aguirre who says, Mi hijo me habló de ella, or related
Yeah.
to the topic. And it's interesting because a lot of our parents are not really into this.
Right.
But us as children, we are the ones bringing it up to our parents. And like I told my mom, say, you should take it. Just take it.
Yeah.
Just see what comes up. Because the more we know, I think the more fun it becomes.
Right.
And if you want to look at it from the fun point of view. But at the end of the day, it's always good to know where we come from. Because in Latin America, per se, in El Salvador, we don't have this in our culture.
No. Yeah.
There's not many records, so I think until I asked you and you said that the Catholic Church keeps tracks of
That's correct.
everything and that the Mormons are the
Have a-
ones who have it.
That's right. They have the largest database of church records, Catholic church records in the world.
So if somebody was ever baptized,
Then they will have it. Baptismal, civil and church records. As
Wow.
far as marital records, they'll have it. Actas de defunción, the death records,
Right.
they'll have it all.
so where could this be found? I mean, do you have to
It'll pull up on Ancestry.com.
really?
Yes, it's amazing. As you start
All right.
gathering your tree
I'm
together.
going. I'm going to get the premium one. Now that you mentioned this, because my biggest hesitation was I'm Salvadorian. I mean, they don't keep records in El Salvador
Oh,
as
the
they
church
should.
did, but the church did.
And now that you mentioned the church, I'm like, okay, yeah, my family's been very Catholic for
Yeah, of course,
forever.
yeah.
So there's got to be something on there.
Catholic, depending on,
Oh, yeah, of course. How is it? Quote Catholic. So, well, guys, this is what one of our new shows will be. We'll be announcing when it will happen. But I thank Rosanna for making the time to come by and
Sure.
talk to us a little bit about this. For both of us has been a special journey finding out about our past and our family and relatives. And we hope this is something that interests you. And if it does, we welcome you to contact us and we can help you figure out which way to go if need be. And you can always listen to this podcast on Spotify. We'll upload it later today after 12 o'clock. And you can share with people. And you can always go to gqradio.com and download our apps. And we thank you for your time. And if you have any questions.
Can I mention some
Sure.
resources? There's some resources here in Houston and also on Facebook. If you're of the Clayton Library in the Museum District, it's part of the Houston Library System, has some wonderful resources if you're of Mexican descent. And if you know what state your family is from like Tamaulipas, from Nuevo León, Coahuila, they will have quite a few records there.
Interesting.
It's an incredible data, and they have a great database there.
And I had an idea the other day, and it's that companies and small companies and whatnot should encourage everyone to do it and do it as a company
Yeah.
thing and find out what everybody
Yeah.
has to share about their past. Maybe some of the things you might not want to share, but the point is, it's an activity that can unite everybody as a team.
I agree. Rather than looking at differences in today's society, I think genealogy and ancestry has a way of bringing everybody, just like Marcelo says, bringing everybody together, because there is no one pure individual. We all come from somewhere. And I think it's good for us to all know that we're a mix.
And one of the reasons that we wanted to bring this topic to you guys is because GK Radio has a 24/7 platform, but we are being listened to from all over the world. I mean, we have people from literally Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and well, why not? I mean, we all have somehow something related to each other, and we want to share that with you. But with this being said, guys, we thank you for everybody who was listening. And Kid, he's been listening. What's going on, my man? Amy Mendes says, thank you for the great information. So
wonderful.
some people are taking something good out of this, and we appreciate it. So till the next time, you can listen to the whole show today after 12 o'clock on Spotify.com. Just look for GQ Radio. It'll be there. And if you have any questions, just send us a message. Till
Y'all take
next
care.
time, guys. Mm-hmm.